Hello everyone, my name is Ketan. I'm the author of Indian Economy Handbook. And in this video, I want to talk to you about why I wrote this book and what can you expect from Indian Economy Handbook. So let's get started. So those of you who don't know me, from 2013 to 2016, I cleared four consecutive prelims, appeared in four mains and two interviews. And in 2015, I was All India rank 860. I am also an alumnus of IIT Delhi, from where I have done BTech in electrical engineering, and currently I'm the faculty of Indian Economy at UPSCprep.com. Now let's come to why I wrote this book. And there are many existing resources available in the market for Indian economy, but personally I found them lacking in some aspects or the other. So some of these resources were too technical. They used, heavy jargons, equations, graphs, which can make the subject cumbersome, especially for those who are tackling the subject for the first time or after a long gap. And uh, this technicality or these jargons are not really required for a generalist exam like UPSC. Now, some of the resources were also too bulky, some even going above 1000 pages. Now, I don't think that a resource for Indian economy should be this thick, because Indian economy is just one part of your GS3 syllabus, which is just one paper out of your four GS papers. Then you have your two optional paper and an essay. And even in your prelims, Indian economy forms around 15% of weightage. So I personally don't think that a resource for Indian economy should be that bulky. Many of these resources are filled with too much data, sometimes too much unnecessary data. Although I do think that some data is important for this subject, but yeah, too much data can make you confused and also may become very difficult to retain. Many of the resources already available, they mix up theory and current affairs. I personally think that first you should tackle the theory. Be very clear, have a strong base of the subject, be very clear about the concepts, and only then you should dive into the current affairs, and that will make your life much easier. And many of the resources available do not have a logical progression. Now, in economy, everything is connected to everything else. But while tackling the subject for the first time, there should be a logical progression to how you tackle the different topics and how you understand it. Many of the books that jump from one topic to another without any logic to it. So I personally found that jarring. And because of these reasons, it was my intention to come up with a resource that is simple, logical, and easy to understand. And that is why I came up with Indian Economy Handbook. Now, what does this book tries to do? The Indian Economy Handbook, it tries to keep it very simple. It uses very simple language and tries to tackle topics in its most elemental form. It gives you a lot of examples for better understanding. The book focuses on building your clarity first. So obviously, the subject has a static portion which consists of theory, and the dynamic portion which consists of current affairs and the happenings in India and around the world. Now, I personally think that the best way to tackle this subject is to have a clear understanding, clarity of the theory portion of this subject, and only then jump into the current affairs. So this book tries to build that clarity for you. It uses lots of examples. So I personally find that using examples to explain concepts makes it much more clearer. So this book, you will notice that there are many examples for each and every concept, each and every theory, so that you'll have a much easier time understanding those concepts. Now, this book has been written strictly as per the UPSC syllabus, nothing out of it, and it also does not leave anything that is in your UPSC syllabus. So once you read this book, at least for the static portion of your subject, you are assured that everything is covered. Now, this book separates the theory from current affairs, as I've already talked about. I have intentionally kept current affairs out of this book because current affairs, by its very nature, keeps on changing. There is constant need for updation of current affairs, and a standard book may risk getting outdated very easily if it also has a lot of current affairs. In fact, many of the resources that are available in the market, the current affairs portion in them becomes outdated very quickly, and therefore you feel the need of buying a new book every time. This book only tackles the theoretical portion of Indian economy, which will help you build a strong base, and then you can move on to other resources for your current affairs, which we'll talk about later in this video. Now, this book has been designed after thorough analysis of the previous year questions. So I took previous year questions from the last 15 years, went through it thoroughly, analyzed each and every aspect of the previous year questions, and only after that I have designed all the chapters and also the contents within those chapters. So I think that's a great way to write a book which is specifically written for this exam, and it will prove to be very fruitful for you. Now, in this book, you'll find a step-by-step progression of all the topics that have been dealt with. You'll find a very logical flow of topics. So you tackle the simple concepts first and then move on to a little complex concepts. Now, I get a lot of questions from aspirants that is this book for prelims or for mains? And the answer is that this book has been written with both prelims and mains in mind, right? So it is relevant for both your prelims examination and your mains examination. Now, from the prelims point of view, around 70% of the questions that you'll get in your prelims examination will be static in nature. So this book will help you in solving those 70% of the questions. Now, 30% of the questions are more dynamic, current affairs based. And for that, you will have to update your knowledge of Indian economy with some current affairs. So we'll also talk about your resources for current affairs later in this video. Now, from mains point of view, although the questions are asked in your mains are conceptual but also somehow related to the current affairs, but for answering those questions you need conceptual clarity, and that is provided through this book. If you read this book, then you will be in a much better place to tackle the current affairs, read the current affairs and understand the current affairs, and only after that you will be able to write a much more high quality answer for your mains examination. So I think this book remains very relevant for your mains examination also. So once your base is clear, so once you have read this book, your base becomes clear, then you will be able to integrate current affairs and you will be able to understand all the articles in the newspapers, because if you read the newspaper articles without any understanding of the subject, you will have a very hard time, because these articles does use some terms, some vocabulary which is very specific to economy. So after reading this book, you'll have a much easier time understanding those newspaper articles, understanding the government reports like the economic survey, which you have to study, or the annual budget. So the simple answer to the question, is it is it relevant for prelims and mains? The answer is yes, it is relevant for both prelims and mains. Now, who should read this book? This book has been designed to appeal to absolute beginners. So if you are an absolute beginner who does not have a background in in economy, then you can pick up this book, whether you have done engineering or medical, or even may not have read economy in your +2. Even then you can pick up this book. Those students who has developed a certain fear of the subject, and many of the students do have fear of economy because it is a slightly technical subject, and initially if you read the articles in the newspapers, it will contain certain vocabulary which is very specific to economy, and that may create certain fear in your mind regarding the subject. But this book does a very good job of allaying all those fears. So students who fear the subjects, they can pick up this book. Those students who find other sources too cumbersome, so if you have already picked some other sources and are not happy with those sources, you can pick up this book, and I promise you this book will help you clarify this subject. And anyone who is looking to build confidence in the subject, definitely you can pick up this book. The only people whom I do not recommend to pick up this book is those people who have already read some other standard book and are quite satisfied after reading that standard book, because most of the books, the contents of those books are not going to be vastly different. All the concepts of economy are going to remain same. So if you have already read some other book and you are fairly satisfied with that book, and you think that you understand all the concepts of economy, then stick to that book. There is no need to read another book, because that will only lead to duplication of efforts, duplication of your study, and more wasting of your time. So you don't want that. So only those people can stick to their sources. If you are an absolute beginner or someone who is struggling with the subject, you can definitely pick Indian Economy Handbook. So let me take you through the Indian Economy Handbook. Let's see the table of contents. So as you'll see, the chapters in the book has a very natural flow. The first chapter is Introduction to Economics, which tackles the very basic concepts of economics, like supply and demand, and those sort of things. Then from chapter 2, we move on to the very important topics such as GDP, GNP. We talk about the calculation of national income. Then next few chapters deals with growth and development, inclusive growth, inequality, and poverty. So these chapters are favorites in both your prelims and your mains examination. Then chapter 6 and 7 tackles with money and inflation. So introduces the concept of inflation. And only after you know what inflation is, what are the different aspects of inflation, we move on to the more technical chapters, which is monetary policy and public finance, which essentially deals with controlling the inflation and trying to achieve economic growth. So monetary policy, within public finance, you have your fiscal policy. Then we study about taxation, banking, financial market, so different aspects of the economy. Then we move on to different sectors of Indian economy: agriculture, industry, infrastructure, services. Then after we have tackled all the sectors of Indian economy, we move on to the external sector. We talk about current account and the capital account, and the forex reserve, all those things. Then we tackle the international economic organizations, where we study about international organizations like the IMF, the World Bank, the World Trade Organization. Then we study the planning, the history of the economic history of India. So how India adopted the 5-year plans, then how the Planning Commission was abolished, and then Niti Aayog was established. And then finally, after we have studied and have a fair idea of the different aspects of Indian economy, we look at the issues that are plaguing the Indian economy, like the unemployment or various human resource development issues. And the final chapter is government institutions. So UPSC has been asking quite a few questions in past years on government institutions. So I've included a chapter on government institutions. So after reading all these chapters, you will have a fairly good grasp over the static portion of economy, and it will really make your base with respect to the subject very strong. If you look at the makeup of a chapter, you can see this is the first chapter, Introduction to Economics, and you have all your concepts. I've also used a lot of examples to explain these concepts. Now, a good feature of this book is these comic strips. So this adds a visual element to the book and keeps things interesting. So there are various comic strips that are also there in the book. So I think overall you'll have a very good time reading this book. At the end of each chapter, you'll also notice that there are previous year questions. So the questions from that topic that has been asked in previous years. So first you read the topic, understand the topic, and then attend. You can directly attend previous year questions. So that will add to your confidence. That's it about the book. Now, what to do after reading this book? Because I've already told you that the Indian Economy Handbook covers the static portions of the subject, and static portion of the subject constitutes around 70% of your prelims examination, and it will also help you write the mains examination answers, but it is not sufficient. It will only build your base and provide you clarity regarding concepts of the subject. You do have to complement with other sources. So I have also prepared a dynamic portion. For the dynamic portions of Indian economy, I have written another material which is available for you to download from the upscprep.com website. So this is economic development, which also includes the agriculture portion. So this resource has all the relevant data analysis of your current affairs, anything and everything you need apart from the Indian Economy Handbook. So these two resources have been written in complementary to each other. So these two resources is going to suffice. I'll also take you through both Indian Economy Handbook and economic development so that you understand how to read these sources. Apart from Indian Economy Handbook and economic development, I think every UPSC aspirant should have a habit of reading at least one newspaper daily. So you should read the newspaper. And then at the time of the announcement of the annual budget, the government of India also comes up with the economic survey, and that is a very important document. So you should definitely look at that. Let me take you through this complementary resource that I developed, which covers the dynamic portion of Indian economy. Um, as you can see, we'll straight away go to the table of contents. And from the chapters, you can understand the different aspects of Indian economy has been covered. The analysis of the current affairs has been done here. So in chapter 1, we start with understanding the India's GDP, what are the various components of India's GDP and how India's GDP has evolved since independence to the present time. So analysis of that has been done. Also the comparison of India's GDP with GDPs of other countries, that has been done. Then we move on to India's inclusive growth. What is the status of different development indicators in India? What is the status of health? What is the status of education, standard of living? All that has been dealt here. Then inflation, chapter money and inflation, rather than the static portion in this book, we talk about what has been the trends of inflation in the last few years and how the government of India and the RBI has been able to tackle inflation. Then we talk about the trends with respect to RBI's monetary policy. Then a chapter is dedicated to the union budget, the latest union budget 2025-26. Then we talk about the existing tax system, what are the various reforms in the tax system that has been brought, what are the different trends of tax collection, indirect tax collection, direct tax collection. The next chapter is regarding banking, the progress of banking in India, how much is the NPA, what is the health of the banking sector in India, all these things. Then the stock market has been discussed, and then all the sectors of Indian economy, the agriculture sector, industry, infrastructure, all these how these sectors and the subsectors has been performing in the past financial year, that has been discussed here. And then the chapter India and the world, the trade relationships of India, the various aspects of trade and India's currency exchange rate and foreign exchange reserve, those things has also been discussed. So I think this resource will prove very helpful in comprehensively covering the dynamic portions of the subject, and this works very good in complement with the Indian Economy Handbook. So this is a great resource that you can make use after you have read the Indian Economy Handbook. So in the end, I just want to tell you that this book is an honest attempt to simplify the subject for you. Now, I'm going to be the first one to accept that this is not a perfect resource, but then which resource really is perfect? But if it helps you in understanding and having an easier time with the subject, then I would think that my goal with this book has been achieved. Thank you.